Oh, Captain, my Captain. These are the Club Fantasy DFS Showdown videos. I am the Captain, Joshua Hudson, and this is my compass, Austin Amandolia. On this video, we are going to be previewing the Houston Texans versus the Baltimore Ravens, the first matchup in the NFL Divisional Round of the playoffs. Austin, these two teams met back in Week 1. Baltimore ended up winning that game 25-9. It was a very different kind of game back then because it was CJ Stroud's first start. It was Lamar Jackson's first time in Todd Monken's offense. Where are these teams now versus then? And what can we realistically expect from this game before we get into our DFS picks?
Yeah, so first off, just throw out everything that happened in Week 1. That was Week 1, y'all. We didn't know what we were talking about then. We were making guesses at that point. These teams have changed a ton since then. Most notably, Lamar Jackson is well integrated into the Todd Monken system now. And CJ Stroud was nearly an MVP candidate. He was an MVP candidate. He's just probably not going to get there ultimately. That injury slowed him down. But people were talking about him as an MVP candidate before he went out. That wasn't happening Week 1, clearly. We were just trying to figure out what was going on. Most notably, though, from this game, looking back at Week 1, it still had J.K. Dobbins in it because that's when he got hurt. It did not have Mark Andrews, however. And so you may look back at this game and see that Zay Flowers had a ton of targets, but that's because there was no Mark Andrews. So I wouldn't expect Zay Flowers to carry that kind of same weight as he did then. But I could see a similar game script happening here. The Baltimore Ravens, they have been willing to rely on the run and to use Lamar Jackson in the pass game to get really big key plays, but not necessarily have him throwing 30, 40 balls. So I wouldn't be afraid to play the running backs. I wouldn't expect this to be a shootout necessarily.
All right, I love it. Let's get into the picks here. We have some fun little segments. If you caught any of our first round of videos during Super Wildcard Weekend, you probably have a little bit of familiarity. The first segment here is Captain Chalk. As everybody knows, with DFS, you love a good chalk pick. And Austin, speaking of the chalk, Mr. MVP candidate himself, Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, how do you not play Lamar Jackson in this spot? He has scored over 30 points in 2 of his last 4 games. Most importantly for DFS to me, he has averaged 51 rushing yards per game on the season. That is a wildly consistent rushing stat line, giving you 5 guaranteed fantasy points per game. Let's say he adds a touchdown to that on through the ground. He's then guaranteeing you 11 yards just with his legs, let alone the fact that Lamar Jackson can throw the ball with the best of them. He can get you 300 yards easily. The other thing about his rushing upside is that quarterbacks tend to actually run the ball more in the postseason because there's more on the line. There's more need for them to create. And so that 51 yards is his floor when it comes to rushing, and he could easily push for 70, 80 rushing yards in this game. It's hard to argue against him. I think if you're in a small field tournament, it's totally fine to play the chalk with Lamar Jackson. You just need to make sure you're getting different elsewhere in your lineup to give yourself that upside.
For what it's worth, Lamar Jackson led all quarterbacks in rushing yards this year, and Houston allowed the 11th most DraftKings points to the quarterback position on the season. But for every chalk, there's the alternative, and this next segment is called the Mutineer, because every captain needs a nemesis. And these are the contrarian choices at the captain spot that offer a little bit of variety and upside in some of the larger tournaments. Austin, you've mentioned Mark Andrews already. Tell us why he would be a good alternative pick, even though Houston hasn't actually seen him play yet.
I think that's the perfect reason right there, is that Houston hasn't seen him yet, but also nobody's going to want to play Mark Andrews. Everybody's going to think, oh, he's injured. He just got back off of IR. I need to see him back in performance before I play him. And so I think he would typically be pretty heavily rostered in the captain spot, but this week he may not be. Now, obviously, you have to watch the injury reports for this to play out positively, because we're still not fully sure if he is indeed going to play. It's trending towards him playing. He has had 2 days of practice consecutively where he was a full participant. That's a really good sign. So he probably plays. But in case he doesn't, obviously don't play him in your captain spot. The other reason I like Mark Andrews is there's not really a clear wide receiver 1 in Baltimore. As much as if it was anybody, it's Zay Flowers. He had about 100 targets this year. The second most targets was 60 targets, and believe it or not, it was Mark Andrews himself, who missed several weeks, had those 60 targets. And there's a crowded field right around there of receivers on this Baltimore team that have 50 or 60 targets. So the reason I like Andrews is because he's the most likely candidate to soak up targets if he plays, whereas all the other receivers, like, they could just all share the load pretty equally, and that's not going to be optimal in a captain spot.
And the biggest weakness on this Houston Texans defense is covering the tight ends. They've allowed the 4th most DraftKings points to the tight end position. It's lining up perfectly for Mark Andrews if he plays. Now, real quick, if Mark Andrews doesn't play, I'm guessing you're okay pivoting to Isaiah Likely in this spot as well, correct?
Yes, definitely okay pivoting to Isaiah Likely in this spot, just because he is the type of tight end that gets treated like a wide receiver. So it's totally fine for me.
Love it. All right. Now, flipping gears a little bit, your next choice here, I find very intriguing because, as we mentioned earlier, these teams did play in week 1. Baltimore ended up having 3 rushing touchdowns in that game, yet Gus Edwards didn't have any of them.
Yeah, but Gus Edwards wasn't really that prominent in the offense at this time. He wasn't really taking over that running back 1 spot. After J.K. Dobbins goes out, Gus Edwards starts getting more attention, and then throughout the season, he continued to kind of keep that momentum up, and he scored a decent amount of touchdowns throughout the year. I was very surprised to see Gus Edwards remain consistent. He also got some pass game utilization this year. The thing about this pick is just flip the script on what people might imagine this game to be. We just saw CJ Stroud put up 45 points. We just saw Lamar Jackson throw for 5 touchdowns in his last start. It's very easy to take those 2 data points and imagine that this is going to be a shootout where both quarterbacks are passing for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. What if we flip the script and we say this is a defensive battle and Baltimore gets up by a couple of touchdowns and just wants to run the ball and run out the clock? That's a great spot to have Gus Edwards as your captain, because if he ends up scoring 2 or 3 touchdowns, he could easily be the highest scoring player on the slate, which is going to give you a big advantage if he's your captain.
And I think that's a solid contrarian pick, because when you look at the numbers, both these teams, Baltimore and Houston, have been really good against the run. But where Houston has struggled against running backs, they've given up 11 rushing touchdowns to running backs. So there's opportunity there if Gus Edwards can find the end zone. Our next segment here is called The First Mate, because every captain needs a reliable crew, and these are the standouts that are going to help maximize your lineups. Austin, we've talked a lot about Baltimore Ravens. Their starting cornerback, Marlon Humphrey's out. So tell me why Nico Collins can have another 195-yard game.
Yeah, Nico Collins. First off, this is the one data point from week 1 that you may want to pay attention to, is the fact that Nico Collins went off in that week 1 matchup. But also, Collins has just been as consistent as they come for the receiver position right now. He has at least 6 catches and 80 yards in 3 consecutive games. And he also has a touchdown in 3 of his last 4 games. He's been CJ Stroud's number 1 most reliable target. I see no reason why that changes in this matchup. The only reason I wouldn't play Nico Collins is a little bit of fear of Baltimore just getting after the quarterback and making it hard for Houston to move the ball down the field. But if I'm playing anybody on the Houston side, I'm definitely playing Nico Collins, because he's going to be the number 1 target at the receiver position for this team.
And on the flip side, you have talked a little bit about Zay Flowers leading the team in targets. Let's fill out the lineup here. Give me some Zay Flowers love.
Yeah, I mean, he leads the team in targets, like you just mentioned. And the thing that I like about Zay Flowers, too, for this spot is almost half of his receiving yards on the season, are from yards after the catch. So he is getting the ball. He is doing work after he catches the ball, which is important for fantasy upside. He's not just getting short dump offs and getting tackled. He's actually doing some more work down the field. So I think there's high upside involved there. Also, just out of the other receivers outside of or I guess I should say outside of the other pass catchers outside of Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, Zay Flowers is the most consistent one. He does get the most consistent targets. Odell Beckham will be in there sometimes. Nelson Agholor will be in there sometimes. But Zay Flowers provides the safest floor. So he's a totally fine person to have in your lineup, especially at his price range. Squeeze him in there, get some consistent points.
I love it. All right, our next category here is going to be the deck scrubbers. These are the cheap punt play options that can make a lineup based on one play, limited opportunity. Got a couple more wide receivers here, Austin.
Yeah, one from each team. So first off, I just mentioned him, Nelson Agholor. The reason I like him, he's been kind of an escape route for Lamar. Like when Lamar gets panicked and he's having to make his way through the pocket and navigate some traffic, somehow Nelson Agholor always seems to be there to just like give him an opening and give him an out of whatever pressure he's in. He's also been getting end zone targets, which I really like. So he almost serves that traditional tight end role in this offense where he's the kind of safe break glass in case of emergency option in the end zone. On the flip side, I also like John Metchie. So last week we debated whether or not we were playing Xavier Hutchinson or John Metchie. We went with Hutchinson. This week we're going with John Metchie. He's been getting more worked into the offense as the season has gone along. And so I like to see that he's getting increased opportunities down the stretch. And he also gets targets down the field, so he can help take the top off the defense. He can, if he catches a 30-yard pass, that's really going to boost your score for your lineup. So I like it. And then if he gets in the end zone too, that just is all the better.
And with Noah Brown recently being placed on IR, that opens up more targets and opportunity here for John Metchie. Before we get to the last segment, I want to remind everybody, you can play DFS against us. Austin, tell the people how and why they should do this.
Yeah. So first off, there's a DraftKings league and a FanDuel league. You can find the links in the description of the show to play with us. We will have a showdown slate for both of the night games this weekend. So that's the Green Bay versus San Francisco game and the Kansas City versus Buffalo game, which I know everybody's going to want to play because of the history there. And the reason why you should play with us is we're bad. We lose all the time, so you can just come take our money.
I cashed this week. Thank you very much.
You did cash this week. I almost won 2 of our contests this week, actually. So I'm a little better at Showdown. So I did better this past weekend, but I have a bad track record in our league. I cash and make money elsewhere, but you can beat us. We're beatable.
You're beatable, Austin. It's okay. I get you. Our final segment. Again, every captain needs that nemesis and every ship needs a kraken. These are the lineup traps that ultimately sink the ship. You got a couple running backs here, Austin, and I'm with you on both of them, honestly.
Yeah, so first off, we have Dalvin Cook. It could be very tempting to say, oh, they just signed this guy to do a Super Bowl run with, and they're going to give him the ball. I have no idea what we're going to get out of Dalvin Cook. Probably nothing. It's probably going to be like, if he gets a carry, it's probably going to be like 1 carry for -2 yards, and that's it. I think he's literally on this team. So at the end of the year, he has a chance to have a ring on his finger, and that's about it. It's also like insurance in case Gus Edwards or Justice Hill goes down. I just don't think we're going to get much more than that. Similarly, I don't understand why this player has had the downfall he has this year, but Dameon Pierce is basically completely phased out of this offense. He gets so little volume. It's almost all on Devin Singletary, and this isn't even a good matchup for running backs anyways. So any chance of saying that he could potentially break one free because of a weak defense, that's not happening this week against Baltimore. I'm avoiding it altogether.
Yeah, I mean, and you can save money on so many different areas. Dameon Pierce is 3,000 for 200 less. Take the big play ability of Brevin Jordan, right?
There you go.
Dalvin Cook's at 1.2 for 800 less. Take a dart throw on Tylan Wallace. Maybe he returns a touchdown. There's points right there, and he's already paid you back. So, yeah, I'm with you on both those guys. Completely out on Cook and Pierce. And that's it for O Captain, My Captain. This has been the DFS Showdown slate breakdown of Houston versus Baltimore. Stay tuned as we have more videos coming up that are breaking down the rest of the games, the Packers versus 49ers, the Bucks versus the Lions, and the aforementioned Chiefs versus the Bills. See it.